Good evening, everyone. I want to call this meeting back to order. We have a quorum of 14 of 16 with Josh and Nicole absent, and they both notified us. We don't have anybody signed up to speak from audience with the public. We have a presentation she'll do. And am I missing anything before we get started? We're going to be doing adult ed, food service, system administration, debt service. And then we're going to hear a few updates and then discuss. Am I missing anything? Oh, I know what I wanted to do. We need to introduce ourselves because we have a new board member. So welcome. It was Rachel, correct? You got it. Yes. Julie Swindler from Warren. And if anybody just wants to go around and introduce yourself. And admin as well, yes.
Danny Jackson from Waldoboro.
Leah Schutz from Waldoboro.
Rachel Morris, Washington.
Tim McLaughlin, Friendship.
Noah Butley, Washington.
Naomi Tahoe.
Randy Camp, Suburban. Eric Owens, Million.
Rachel Wilcox, Union.
What's in the friendship?
That's Sticky, Waldoboro.
Trask, Waldoboro.
Melvin Williams, Waldoboro.
Karen Pike, Business Manager.
Tom Gray, Assistant Superintendent.
Some admin back there.
Julie Levin, Fellow Principal at Village School.
Jamie White, Assistant Principal in the Life Board. Casey Lufkin, Assistant Director of Social Services. Karen Bracken, Social Services. Linda Pease, Principal at Old Valley High School. Crystal Blushi, Mary Steinmeiser, Friendship Village School. And Ray Leonard, Director of Adult Education.
Matt Lash, 712 Athletic Director.
Josh Schneider, Principal at MMS.
Ryan Rice, Facilities and Transportation.
Everybody. All right. And thank you, Tom, for filling in tonight. We had something else to take care of, so he's going to help us out tonight. We can start with adult education.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here this evening to present the fiscal year 2026 proposed adult education budget. It'll be very brief, and I just wanted to take a brief moment to highlight some of the things that we've done in adult education so far this year. We have 18 students enrolled, and we have 6 to 10 of them on track to graduate by the end of the school year, which is really exciting news. Our graduation rate has been a little bit low over the last couple of years, so we're really excited to have so many students on track to complete. We just finished up our second CDL Class B bus driver training class at Windsor School in partnership with RSU 12. So that's some of our exciting news that I wanted to share. And I really appreciate all of the support RSU 40 and the RSU 40 school board has given us as we work with many young adults who have left high school and are working towards high school completion. So thank you very much. I appreciate your support. If you turn to the adult education budget, there is a 4.1% increase. That is almost entirely because we added health benefits to the director position for next year. That hasn't been the case in previous years past. The cost centers have pretty much remained stable, and there are no other big increases in the budget. I'm happy to go line by line, but it's very straightforward. I don't want to take up more of your time than necessary, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ray? Oh, go ahead, Eric.
How are your classes today?
We call them learning labs. So just as we work with students individually, we develop an individual learning plan for each one. They're all unique. We offer instruction through the learning lab model where students come, they work on their learning plan with an instructor, but they're all working at a different pace and on different subject areas. This year, and I attribute a lot of our potential graduation rate to adding a virtual HiSET learning lab where we have a live instructor meeting with students several times a week online. It's really been a game changer for us. Many of our young students have social anxiety, they have, or they have health concerns, so they're uncomfortable being in the learning lab in person. So this has been really great to be able to offer them instruction where they can work from home. And I just want to be clear, it's not online instruction that they do on their own. They are actually working with a virtual tutor. A real live one, not an AI.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have food service. Do you want me to speak now? Yeah, okay. So last week, I think it was, or the week before, it was communicated to all of you about a presentation related to food service. There is one in your folder. However, what I had asked Julie and Danny, if we could present that at the second board meeting in April, so that we can stay with budget stuff for tonight and we can look at the food service changes. It's not, unless somebody feels strongly, it's not going to change the budget that we have, because the budget that we asked for local tax base is $55,000. So unless somebody's advocating to increase that greatly, I think it would be it's something that we should definitely look into and talk about. So I just wanted, because of the time constraint of losing last week's meeting, everyone's okay with that. That's great. Sorry, Storm. Stepped on you.
Sorry, I'm Storm Hendricks, I'm the food service director. I misunderstood the direction. Julie gave. So I'm not gonna go through every line either because mine's pretty straightforward and we didn't change a whole lot this year. And pretty much because payroll and benefits, it is what it is. And we didn't, what we did, we noticed that of course the price of food just keeps going up. And we found in some areas we were a little under budgeting for food, but we were a little over budgeted for supplies. So we tried to, if we added some to the food line, we took it from the supply line. There was a couple of schools, for the middle school, we were down a little bit in the food, so we went up a little bit in the supply. Miller, the same thing. Prescott, pretty much everything stayed even. Union were up quite a bit on the food and the supply line, so we are looking at, I'm looking at a different vendor, and she used a particular one that she was comfortable with, and we went through and found out that it was a little bit higher in price than the one we get to Dennis, so we're slowly switching her over to Dennis, so we should see that come down a little bit. Warren School, again, we're up on the food line, but the participation rate increase, so that going to a little bit of increase on that. Friendship, again, up on the food line, it's all went down on the supply line. So we just kind of took from one and put on the other. High school, up on the food and the supply line. Participation rate has increased there quite a bit. We have 2 breakfasts there actually. We have the first breakfast and then we have a second breakfast. In my line, I still have the 50,000 there. We never touched, so that's still sitting there for equipment. But we were blessed to get 3 decent grants this year, which replaced a lot of our equipment. So finally, we're getting the equipment all replaced. And we actually got the high school an air fryer, which they're still using. It's huge, it's like 14 racks, so we can air fry foods rather than just bake them. So they were loving that. I know we're gonna go over the PowerPoint at the other meeting, just to highlight a couple things though. that we've done differently this year, which will be repeated, but I'm excited to share it, is, we're trying to go totally dye-free. We're working on it. We actually have the Warren Community School is finally there, and the other ones are really close, so hoping by the end of this year we'll be totally dye-free. In our foods, we did some other small changes that we can talk about too, but one of them, instead of the kids always having to take milk for lunch, we got a choice between milk and salt water. So at least they have the option, so it's not getting all the calories from milk, but it's something different. And we switched to our, USDA would give us vegetable oil to use, and we switched to olive oil. We're making changes, we're getting there, and, I'm excited to show the parent PowerPoint next month, so I think, you know, we've done some good things. I'm really proud of our staff. I've been threatened actually at one school. To not get
Are
rid
you
of
talking
them.
about me? I have threatened nobody.
Tell
us you GB.
I think we have a pretty good staff. We have Miller and Warren School, and I think all of them are doing a really good job. So I'm really proud of them, want to give them kudos because they deserve it.
Are you fully staffed right now? You're missing one at
We
the,
never did fill the one at the high school, and I think we're good. We've had a lot of people out, and it's been kind of a tough year that way.
need subs. And she does have a retiree at Friendship Village School.
Yeah. So, yeah, next year we'll have an open position at Friendship.
Maybe some of these schools, like Warren is really high, maybe you'd already talked to the high school, it seems similar. The amount of people that are filling out the paperwork for free and reduced, are you seeing a significant increase in that or no?
No, and I'm glad you brought that up actually, because we're kind of like, we don't know what's gonna happen next year.
Right.
Like everything else, it looks like things may be okay for food service, and states are gonna pick up, a share of it, and hopefully we'll still see that federal reimbursement. There's 3 different ways we can go. One is to keep going in the traditional manner. The other one, we tried what's called Provision 2 a couple of years ago. With Provision 2, what you do is you collect the application and collect them for 40 years. Whatever the free and reduced percentage rate is what it is. But it was so low, we decided to, we're hoping we can get the increase up. We could try that again because it did go up. But the thing that's different this year from previous years is they've added students on there that get named there. However, I can't use those people to apply for stuff. So there's also something called CEP. Because right now we're about a little over 50% free and reduced, so I can go for that. And that's the same deal where you do applications once and you don't have to worry about it for 4 years. But they're thinking about right now, because it used to be 40% free and reduced you could apply. We were never able to because the 40% comes just on the DC. It doesn't include the income, just on the direct certification list from the state. We would never met a 40%, but then they just dropped down to 20, so we could actually apply. But they're talking about boosting up to 60, which we would.
You say there's been an increase of people taking food, is that all across the district or just? at
Most of them. I think Friendship, we have that in the, I actually have it in the PowerPoint.
So are they paying for the food or is this,
It's all free.
okay, so none of them are filling out the paper?
We had about 420 applications out of 1,800 students.
And is that up from previous years? It's down a
Um,
little bit.
It's a
It's
little
down a
bit.
little bit, but our free and reduced lunch percentage went up. What I'm talking about is direct certification, which means children that come into our system automatically based on their family situations, which are things like TANF and SNAP and now main care. So when they added in main care, our percentage went up. So even though our number of applications have gone down a little bit, we are getting more children automatically certified. And what that impacts is that's the amount that the federal government reimburses us for, is the free and reduced, and then the state reimburses us for the children that would otherwise be paying students. We've seen a pretty significant increase in some of the schools with participation. I think actually all the schools, year over year, we've seen an increase, and some quite significantly. I think the high school is one of them. We've seen a pretty big uptick in Warren. Some as high as 70% of our student base takes breakfast and lunch. So I think that's, a really good thing for families who can't afford it, or families who just, we don't get up in time to make lunch for our kids. I mean, I knew that we had a problem before trying to get people to fill out that work paperwork before we even offered the free and reduced. So I was just curious.
Yeah, it's and now that it's at no cost, they don't see the point, even though we send out explaining the reason why we need to have those numbers. They just don't. One thing that scares me is they're talking about possibility, if we have to go back to application, they might force parents to have to prove their income. We're not gonna get anybody. It's gonna be terrible to happen, so.
We tried to incentivize people to turn them in by giving like $100 gift card or whatever.
For our senators too, and along with many other food service directors explaining the impact it's gonna have, so.
Rachel?
I think you raise a really good point. My kids go to Union, and I credit Miss Dawn with expanding my kids' repertoire of food. Even my kid who lives off of crack mac and cheese, pizza, cheeseburgers at home, is trying new foods. So we are huge proponents of, at least Union. I can't comment on everybody else's school lunch, but I think it's super important to just bring attention to the fact that everybody getting free lunch puts them all on the same playing field. I remember in school, you knew who got free lunch, who paid for it, and it just adds to that stigmatization of one more thing. This makes sure that everybody accesses food on the same level without question or discussion or gossip or any sort of issue. And I think you guys do a really good job. And I think it's important. Like, if I had to pick kind of one thing that stuck around, this is going to be on the top of the list to make sure that everybody gets breakfast and lunch. So, great job.
I just wanted to clarify for those that are newer on the board that may not realize that food service is fully self-funded with these reimbursements, almost fully. We only have 55,000
55,000 comes
in the
from
budget.
from the 5 towns local tax.
So the rest of this is all funded by the reimbursements. Naomi?
I just wanted to chime in on the stigma of getting free lunch. Essentially, I taught in the district from 1989 to 2004, and it was a problem then getting parents to return. I mean, this has just been going on forever. So, I'm glad that the kids, that stigma at least has been kind of removed for the kids. I just wish the parents could be convinced that filling out that bloody piece of paper would be a good thing. So.
Randy?
The middle school and the high school, it's just because I'm sure it's not what I think, but Coca-Cola Company.
No, it's not.
So, right, I'm hoping that.
We get like, I think you get Izzy's, orange juice, apple juice, stuff like that. They get vitamin water. It's very limited on what we're allowed to get.
Right.
Yeah.
I do.
One time they delivered it in a Budweiser truck. So.
What's the teacher get?
That's been pretty social media.
All right, are there any other questions for Storm? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Storm.
Next, we did transportation.
Yeah,
We did operations. We are at system administration. Right?
Yep.
Is that you?
that's me. So system administration is made up of the board's budget, the superintendent's budget, which also includes the assistant superintendent, and the business office, which is, my staff, accounts payable, payroll, and a shared administrative support person, with Tom. So that's why when we get to here, it's delineated in 3 ways. You'll see there's some increases, mainly across contracted services in the board. That is legal fees and audit. And then liability insurance, as you've seen in, operations budget, is going up 15%, for all of our insurance. The printing and binding is related to what we send out. The printing and binding is what the towns charge us for their ballots and for running the ballot booths, for us. And then the only other change you'll see is technology related repairs in the business office. And, Matt might be able to help me out a little bit where Holly Doe isn't here. So we've had the same accounting system for 259 years, I think. And I want to keep it for another year. And so in order to make it more secure, we took it off a traditional server and they put it into a cloud-based. And so it made it safer. You don't have to do the backup tapes. There's not an actual hard drive server sitting here if there was a fire, that sort of thing. So it's cloud-based. With that came additional costs, and that's why you see that uptick of $10,400 in the bottom half of that budget. So I can go through some of the smaller lines if you want. The dues and fees are related to organizations that Steve and Tom are in that both just increase their rates each year. So you'll see the bottom line, including yellow lines, which are salaries and wages, and white lines, which are more flexible. It's $38,000 increase. My recommendation, and the reason I didn't put this into the overall, is we have a contingency fund of $100,000 that we keep this budget flat, except for the salary increases for this year. And we continue to work on, I get to put audit back out to bid and insurance out to bid. So I was going to recommend that we did not increase it by the $31,600, that we use a contingency fee to offset it. I was so excited. But, you know, it's
So
you
we would
guys,
take
of course.
that line and reduce it.
I would just
to the
reduce that
7.
line to either that or whatever it ends up needing to be, because you'll see there's some negatives in salaries as well due to benefit changes. So I would try to offset those as much as I can as the year goes on. And then whatever difference is offset it with 100,000. And see what I can do with going out to bid on audits and insurance. Insurance is actually, it's up 15%, but in the last 2 years, it was 20 each year. So I'm hoping that we're going to continue to see that continue to go down.
We have any questions for Karen? I've got Rachel, Danny, Randy.
What's schoollaw.com?
It's courses that are done through John Woodson.
It's just on a couple of separate line items.
Yeah, it's different courses that Steve and Tom take. I don't know if you've actually taken any yet, but Christina used to take. And I think that might be where some of the board stuff is done through as well.
Thank you.
Danny?
You kind of already mentioned it, but, about the audit, and how you've said how we're paying. Ours is
Yeah.
higher than normal because of when we were looking for one.
Right.
That was
So
the,
what has happened with audit firms is, like a lot of industries, the pool has shrunk. And so the number of public audit firms in the state of Maine has shrunk. And the one that we had been with for 3 or 4 years terminated their relationship with us only because they didn't have enough staff. So they focused on ones that were more in their location. So we went out to bid, to a new agency, and there was only one person that would even take us. So I piecemealed it together with a former auditor who now does the bulk of our work, and then the audit firm just comes in at the end because the former audit firm guy can't certify. So we put it together, but I'll probably go out to bid and hope that some audit firms have started to loosen up a little bit. It's a statewide thing, particularly for schools, which is why it used to be you had to have your audit done by December 31st, and you still do, but they now almost automatically extend you 3 more months because they know there's a whole bunch of us that have been shoved to the 4th quarter of the calendar year because there aren't enough audit firms to do our audit in May and June and July when they used to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Randy?
Aaron, on page 2, student staff support superintendent, last line, 100,000 for a contingency. What will we just?
That has always been in there. That's
I
just in
figured
case
that.
something catastrophic happens. We could cover at least 100,000 before we'd have to go out to the tax base and ask for money. I'm sure at the time that the 100,000 was put in there, it probably covered a lot more than it would now if something catastrophic happened. Yeah, I mean, it's been in there I'm on year 6. I don't know how long it's been in there at 100,000.
I can see why. I mean, I figured so.
Yeah.
but I just want-
But that's why I was saying we could use that for this year, because I think we have other budget issues that are more significant, and I can make this work for this year. And I'm still collecting all the paper clips, so.
Rachel?
So if we pull from that contingency pool to cover that 31,000, is the goal then for that to go back up to 100,000 at some point? And then how does that happen?
Right, so ideally, when we go out to bid for audit, and for insurance, that we'll find that we can bring those rates back down and then, put the 100,000 back in for next year.
Anyone else? We are at debt service.
The debt service is going down $46,544. Obviously the bottom part is Region 8. The other 2 parts are our middle school. And so we're down to almost no interest on the middle school, and our bond payments are flat for the principal. And that, that expires in FY 28. So we have 2 more years of paying for the middle school. So it started in 2008. So we'll have 1 less debt.
That's what both of these lines are, the major capital and the principal payment.
Right, because the state funds the top part of that, and the middle is local debt. And that comes through our ED 279.
Any questions about that? Now, the proposal for next year puts money in this cost center. Puts
No, it can either be put in here, or it can be a lease payment in operations and
it'll
maintenance.
be at least within.
Yeah, it'd be a
Okay.
lease payment.
All right, so that concludes the budget presentations, but we have some updates and some things to review before we start the big discussion.
Yeah, and
Is that,
there are just a few minor changes that we made
Yep.
on this.
this is the new summary?
Yes. I printed 30 and pasted it. Do you want me to bring this up or do you want to talk about the? Which one do you want to, what would you like Josh to say first?
Let's go through your stuff and then we'll.
So some of this will be familiar from before. Actually, I just talked about debt service. That's where debt service is going down. The next line is Midco School of Technology. That's their expense increase. Wages, benefits, property insurance, and then the extracurricular transportation that we spoke about at previous meetings. The decrease to paid family and medical leave, as you recall, we had budgeted 1% last year for everyone, and this year, with clarification, we found that there's a subset that we don't have to include, as well as the district only needs to pay 0.5%, and the employee pays the other. Sorry, availability. So the next two lines is the capital that Julie spoke about. So we're proposing to move around 680,000. EEI was at the Board of Facility and Finance, I forget.
Facilities.
Speaking about things that we need done in the district. So what this would do would be a lease payment. It would be moving money that we already have from facilities into a debt service or into a lease, so that we can bridge over school years as well as get more done in a shorter period of time. For those who are new to the board, the septic system at Madonna Valley High School is failing. We've had issues with it more than once. Heating system at the middle school, high school, heating controls, ventilation, etc. None of the other stuff is new except for in discussions with Brian. We had proposed 2 van drivers and we are going to remove those from the budget, and we're going to move money around and try to find some savings. So we'd just be asking the board to approve 1 van driving position, but we'll find the money for it in the existing 2 budgets for this year, knowing that next year we have some debt relief on the capital lease that we think we'll be able to offset that with. So that's why we removed that. So what you'll see as we scroll down, everything in tan. Do you remember my tan? Because I love all the colors. What I'm proposing that we do is the amount of money that Tom wants or feels we need to protect in Title I and Title V due to the possibility of not having federal funding, is to put that in create a reserve fund similar to what we did for capital improvement last year. Create a fund that allows us to, if we voted on at the district budget meeting, that allow us to create the fund the fund, and then spend the money with board approval. We would only fund the fund if the federal funding doesn't come in. Otherwise, we'll leave that money in our fund balance where we have it now. So that way, since we're not going to know whether we get our federal funding before the vote, we will not need to ask the taxpayers for money that we may eventually get through federal funding, because we have a fund balance.
This may be a good moment for me to share the news that I got about Title V.
You got some exciting news?
Well,
Huh?
everything's exciting depending on how you look at it, right? So there is no definitive news yet about whether the federal money in through ESEA, which is the title money, is going to come in. We've received a communication that Danny had forwarded to us about Title I, that we anticipate that at least this year's funding, which takes us through September, will be okay. Don't know about that, about what comes after that. I received an email from, I and every other district that receives federal money received an email week before last that our Title V allocation is estimated to be dramatically less next year. So I put this in my board report for the board meeting on Thursday. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but we have, this year, we have about $124,000 in Title V money, which we spend on McKinney-Vento, EduPlanet, and a few other smaller things, but those are the biggest things in Title V. Next year, it's estimated to be $9,400. So from $124,000 to $9,400. Year before last, it was we had 118,000. During COVID, we got up 200,000 in Title V. But I mean, it's always been a decent chunk of money. And for whatever reason, they're estimating it to be reduced by 93% for next year. So that's one piece of information.
So I should have started by saying we have unassigned fund balance of around $2 million. I was recommending this way, if we do get the grant money, we don't touch the fund balance. And if we don't get the grant money, we move the money with the board's approval and we spend it with the board's approval. The other two funds that I was going to bring to the board either on Thursday or 2 weeks from now is to create reserve funds in a very similar manner for local entitlement, or said differently, for special purpose private schools that sit in local entitlement in case that funding does not come through, so that we can pay for the students that need special purpose private school. And the last reserve would be food service, again, in a similar manner. We don't have enough fund balance to fund all three of those in their entirety, but it would bridge a gap until we find out whether we're getting that federal funding or not. Again, it doesn't commit the board to spend that money in any way. It just sets up the fund and allows it to be spent with board approval.
I'll get you. If we set up this fund, do you have to determine an amount that we're going to be, like, is there a?
It's recommended that it's set up to say up to. So we could say up to, in this case, let's say 350,000. But again, we could vote that in every year for 10 years and never put any money in it if it's not needed. Lots of districts have various reserve funds for that purpose.
I'm thinking about other title funds that you didn't ask to be moved, that we were just going to do maybe without if we didn't get it. If we could make the amount enough to cover all of the title. Okay.
The total, off the top of my head, the total amount we're getting in federal title money is just shy of $900,000.
That's counting the pilot grant and stuff.
Yes. The bulk of that is Title I. And some of these items here are in Title I, but obviously you see the total amount is 347 some odd thousand.
Mhm.
And the thinking there was that it seemed at the time really drastic and a huge blow to the local tax base to project we're going to lose everything, move it all into local money. It seemed that to be a good idea to think of what can we absolutely not afford to lose and make sure we have money for that somewhere. And then honestly, it's a bit of a roll the dice about what the federal government will do for the rest. But you're absolutely right. If the federal government, if we lost all of that federal money, there's just the bulk of it is still, we have to make hard decisions.
So just so I'm accurate, we have in our budget about 600,000 in salaries and whatnot that's covered under titles. We still
have that. We're going to estimate that it will go in Title I.
So we could set up the fund for that high amount. We would never have to fund it to that high amount, correct? Unless we needed to, correct? And even then, we could decide how much, like, we could even say, you know, we can do up to 900,000, but, you know, we're gonna do 500 or we're gonna do 300 and decide who gets it at that time.
Correct. And a step further is you could fund it and then whoever within the district has to come to the board to get approval to spend it as well.
It's a time frame for funding.
I can,
Do it anytime
I can do
in
it
the
anytime.
next fiscal year. We can fund it. I'm sorry, Melvin? Did you have a question?
It seems to me our administration has hit this right head on. With Tom being right there doing it. It's not just this district's problem. It's a countrywide problem. You know, if it comes to the, you know, we've hit it right head on and are doing something about it. But this is a countrywide problem that other districts are gonna be really hard.
Everybody's trying to figure something out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's not just local to us.
Yes.
When would we give approval? Would it be like a single vote or would it be?
so when I distribute all the paperwork that's associated with the budget, it'll be one of the articles. So I think like our capital reserve is maybe Article 22, making that up, but we'd have Article 23, 24, and 25 if you want all three of those. So then the board would sign off on that paperwork, and then at the district budget meeting, the taxpayers would need to also approve those. Again, it's a transfer of money we already have. It's not asking for additional funding.
And then that fund balance, what would that otherwise be used for or not used?
It's intended to be there for, you know, catastrophic reasons. However, we as a district are never allowed to spend more than the taxpayers have voted in. So we cannot spend a fund balance in the year that we have it. We have to either go out to vote or put it in the next year's budget. So for example, RSU 40 went many, many years without having one. But if say, our state subsidy went way down, we could try to bridge that gap in the following budget year with that. So what my intentions is to try to get as much additional fund balance in this school year as well, so that we don't deplete the existing fund balance. Even though RSU 41 years without one, I'd rather we don't.
Yeah.
So I guess we're looking at the potential loss of all the federal money as one of those catastrophic events that fund balance is envisioned for.
And really, the only thing we'd have to do along with the budget is approve creating a fund. No money transfer, it's just creating a fund in case we need it. And that way we don't have to include this in our budget, the tan lines.
Guess what happens next year if the same scenario plays out?
Right. So next year if federal funding, it ceases to be a thing, then that's, I guess, another conversation. But this year where it's so close to budget season and there's so many unknowns. So let me say one more thing. Okay, so that's why I moved them to the bottom. But then in addition, because that was the good news, I should have started with the bad news. We still don't have our insurance rate, but we do have the min-max. So the min-max is 3% is the minimum and the max is 14, currently budgeted at 10. So just kind of to give you an idea of what that is, it's about $68,000 percentage point. So if we commit 14, we're going to need to find another $280,000.
Say that figure again.
Which one? Sorry.
Did you say 280?
280 if we come in at 14,
In addition,
in addition to what I have in there already as an
you have
increase.
10%?
Pardon?
10%?
I have 10%. Yeah,
And what's the max?
14. I have no idea what we'll come in at. We came in pretty close to the top last year. I can be hopefully come in at 3. But I'm guessing we're probably not going to come in lower than the 10. thing.
And so the trust hasn't decided yet if they're gonna kick any in.
They did. And that's
Oh,
how
they
they, and that's how they got it down.
Oh,
the
from the
3 and the
17 to
14.
the 14.
Says what they do is they send out a letter. They don't usually send out the letter that they sent with the 17, but they usually send out a letter in March that says, here's the minimum and maximum. And then within the week or two after that, they send them out to the individual schools. And they have promised that they will have them to each of the schools by April 11th. So we have 11 more days before, potentially, or I could get it tonight. But potentially 11 days before I know what our true insurance impact will be.
Did we discuss all the changes that were on here? From the last summary? Thanks.
I mean, I think I decreased wages a little bit. I went through and Holly and I went through like every single employee and made sure everything was in. So did bring that down a little bit, 48,000 or something, but.
The unknown there is that the administrator contract hasn't been finalized yet.
Yeah, so that's the other one.
All right. Is it just Josh? Is there anyone else?
Josh is the only one I'm aware of, but I don't know if anyone else wants to speak.
I believe that Josh Schneider wanted to speak regarding some middle school things. Yes? No? Maybe?
Or I can speak to what you sent me, Josh. I just wanted to give you. the
Well, I'll
opportunity.
just speak in generalities because, we submitted our budget a couple of weeks back and we anticipate changes as far as I can probably say at this point. We're working on a schedule, working things out, but yeah, in terms of incorporating staff from other buildings and shifting. So our budget that we submitted will inevitably change in some way, shape, or form. And we can't really predict what we need yet because we're really in the early stages. But I don't know, I just wanted to plant that seed. Wish I could have come tonight with here's all the adjustments we need to make, but we're still at step one. So, I mean, I know we need some scheduling software. We're gonna have to divide some rooms. We're gonna need some room dividers. We're gonna have to have some sinks installed for science compliance. And the list grows as we plan, but yeah, so something just to think about as we go forward. Don't know that we'll have anything by Thursday, either because we're still, like I said, gathering information.
I'd just like to say and ask the board to recognize Josh and Julie are doing a fantastic job to try to make the adjustments that will be needed and to envision that with this, pretty rapid change that has landed on them, and they're just being real team players. I think those things need to be said.
Yep, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Just a heads up.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
Right. So I believe at this point, everything's been presented. Oh, were there any other admin that had anything they needed to add? Or say, or do, or go for it?
I didn't know if the board would appreciate just a handout about our class sizes for next year.
So,
want 3 teachers at a grade level, somebody needs that new teacher that I, put in for.
Yes.
Could you just get like, work me through this?
Yeah, I'm just kind of.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know, it made some sense to me. The first column is the grade level for next year. Current class sizes with 3 teachers, except for 5th grade. So current 5th grade only has 2 teachers, so there are 24 in a class. Projected class sizes, and I didn't even use like our projected class sizes. All I did was move this year's kids up a level. I didn't add any new kids, and I don't think that's likely to happen. But if that happens, those would be the class sizes with 3 teachers on a grade level. And then the projected class sizes for all the grade levels at 2. So you see, there's not really a grade 2 there anyplace.
So that, I guess, is my question. Maybe it's I'm still fresh.
Yeah.
Where in the budget is the difference between 3 and 2?
So I asked for, well, assuming nobody moved or only one moved, I asked for a classroom teacher, which would have become a 5th grade classroom teacher.
Okay.
So either I need, if all of the 6th grade teachers move to the middle school, I need a teacher to make 3 5th grade classes, or somebody could stay and the new teacher should go to the middle school.
Okay. Where do I go to 2? I mean 3.
It's
M level, that's what I was looking for, thank you. Year 1 million, got it, okay.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. Now, where to start is always the question.
No,
So-
it
It was a while ago and I answered my own question.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's hard to see down here
It's
sometimes.
okay. I answered my
Caller
own question.
next time. Seems like one of the most feasible places to start is to start eliminating some of the things that are in the proposal that we know we probably will not want to include in a budget number. Would we like to do that? Yes,
I feel like that would be a smart way to go about this.
okay. At least as a starting point. Did you have one, a suggestion?
A, B, and AC. Just
A, B, and AC.
right off the bat to start.
So we put all the title stuff at the bottom. I don't know if that's. where you
Yeah,
want
no,
it.
not in the titles are listed 1 through 8. I was
Right.
going through in the bottom of scenario 3, A, B, the video production equipment for board meetings. I feel like all of us using our big boy and big girl voices is a lot cheaper. So I personally can't support that one. And the human resources director, it's been in there, the 2 budgets that I've sat through. And so I feel like in a year where we're talking about where we have issues and uncertainty, we're
Yeah, well, the
trying
money
to make
don't come
do
from.
for at least 1 more year without it.
Is there anyone extremely opposed to removing those 2 from our final budget proposal? Eric?
On the video production, we brought up another option, cheaper option, 11,000.
That option involves staying in one place. If you look 2 people
Right.
down, she'll hit you if you suggest it. I just want you to know. Yeah, back up.
I'm used to that. I'm not throwing that out, that it couldn't be in one place. I'm just saying, instead of 50,000, 11, the quality of what we're projecting is not that great. And if we want people to be involved and listen to what's going on at our meetings, I think it's important that we do the best with what we can. But that's my,
You hit the button.
I've got Brooke and Rachel.
So I got the pleasure of listening to all of you last Monday online. And other than I think you need a few more microphones, I knew exactly who was talking.
yeah.
I picked up the mumbling. However, I will say that microphones is really what I think you guys need. I don't think that's $11,000.
I actually just
It's
noticed that
not
we're not even
plugged
plugged in.
They can't hear us?
No, the
No,
microphone.
the extension microphone's not.
Oh,
plugged
even
in.
better.
Matt, can you come fix
But
our?
I am
didn't
pretty
help.
quiet on the board, I know. Other than I didn't really know Tim and he was sitting at the edge, but I could figure out who it was because I eliminated all of the voices. It's just you need a few more microphones, you're fine.
I think we asked if this could get like more daisy
Yeah,
chained
well, we
microphones,
should
right?
probably plug it
We
in.
could,
today.
we could start.
Matt, do you know how to plug that in?
It is plugged in.
Oh,
The microphone's
The
not,
microphone.
the extender's not.
extender.
The extender.
The extender's 3 feet away from the actual unit, so it covers nothing.
So,
Okay, like Matt's the one that made the proposal or wrote up the thing for the lesson.
We are working at the limits of that setup. Absolutely. That's what I can tell you.
it's fine.
Rachel?
As a parent of 2 kids in the district, if I have to choose between some sort of educational programming and better tech for the board meetings, I'm a million times over going to pick education. It's not that bad to listen online. You got 50 grand kicking around, you want to throw at the school so we can do this better? More power to you. As a hard no for me.
Danny?
I know like Brooke suggested, just more microphones, but the system we currently have, could it handle more microphones?
I don't know, that's why we didn't know if Matt could speak to.
That's absolutely true. It is working at the limit of what it's capable of doing. It's not intended to work as a board meeting type application. It's made to do small conferences, 6 people around a small table. This in a gymnasium is pretty much unusable. Here it's manageable. They're clearly not ideal. There isn't really a facility to add more microphones. We need to step up a level above.
And that's the $11,000 one that Holly spoke about.
Yeah, and obviously the limitation there is that it doesn't travel. So.
Thank you.
Melvin?
It seems to me that, there's all kinds of places to spend money. Everybody's budget has gone up. Your home budget has. Everybody needs a wage increase because everybody needs more money. That's all we ever hear. We can't be spending taxpayer money. There's people that aren't going to be able to pay their taxes if the taxes go up any higher than they are. I know some in my neighborhood. You all know some in your neighborhoods. And when they can't pay them, we're not going to get the money. The town don't have the money to send to the district. So if we can't make, talk loud enough so that people can hear us, even them in the audience. And if people are so lazy that they can't get their rear end here to do something, if they got a complaint or whatever, they're not helping our education system a bit. So, I think we can handle it the way we've been going the last 50 years, instead of adding and making it simpler for people to lay back on the couch. And I hear part of it, but I don't hear it all.
Noah?
You can let Rachel go first. I've already spoken once, so.
I just didn't know, is there any kind of mandate for is there a reason why we have to, or any kind of disability act or something for people who can't make it here that we have to broadcast our meetings?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Transparency is nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, but it's not like a requirement. Okay.
No?
I figured I was just gonna keep going up the list unless anyone else had something
I
else they
had
wanted to
Brooke-
talk about.
Oh, no, I'm with Noah. I think that we talked about Z before, the school resource officers, and somebody said that they didn't even think we could get that amount. So I feel like we were supposed to research it, and so I would be in favor of taking that out this year, leaving one at the high school, of course.
Yes, and that's not in.
I did not want to do that without knowing if that was even an option. Because for some reason, I think you had to have special qualification. I don't know, I'm not that person.
It's gonna be, we had both uneasiness from our administrators as to where, how, and these SROs would be used. We would also have difficulty hiring at that number.
Right.
Like filling those positions, there is far more incentive to go, even with the lowest level of certifications, to fill in at law enforcement agencies. So
I guess I would have been in favor of one being housed maybe between Warren, Friendship, and Washington, only because neither one of those towns have a police department. Warren at least, Miller has Waldeboro, and then the high school, middle school have the officer there. So if I was gonna vote, it would only be for one to share among the 3 schools that do not have one. But otherwise, I'm fine taking that out until we even know if these are options. I don't want to put it in the budget if it's not gonna work.
Randy?
I agree, and I think we should just keep the one we have, across the 441, right on. That's my suggestion.
Lynn?
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
just because I know Noah will have some more too here. Library, media specialist, $90,000. The state requires that the district have at least one library media specialist. All of the rest can be by statute, library techs. So I would vote that one down myself.
Can I just stop you for a second? Did Linda Pease need to speak?
I just wanted to say that I was the one that said about the training for the SROs, they have to have special training. The other thing, that I would think before you did something like that, how many elementary schools in Maine have full-time SROs? Do we know? Do we know what those programs look like? Are they doing DARE every 6 weeks? And that's another thing that an elementary school would need to add into their curriculum. When Steve and I talked about it, the day after the last time we all talked about it, similar to what Brooke said, I said, knowing the dance that has to take place between 2 societal institutions of law enforcement and education, because it is a dance. And sometimes it's a smooth waltz and sometimes you step on each other's toes quite effectively as you're trying to work through something. But if you did anything, it would be a Knox County person versus the Waldeboro Police Department, because your Knox County person would be your Union, Washington, Friendship, Warren person, and also the person who would deal with law infractions from kids at the high school who are from those towns, because as I mentioned, you have the jurisdictional issue. So even when we have things that happen at the high school, depending on where it happened, the Waldeboro Police Department can deal with it if it's a Washington student. But if they're from another town, we still have to call out to the Knox County Sheriff. So if you were to cut it down to 2, it would be a pursuit of perhaps a Knox County person that would service that area. But even then, we're doing it now. You're called over today and we sent our officer over. It's quite a dance to learn to work with an institution like that. And Justin and I talked a little bit about it, and I don't think we're ready for that yet, but far be it from me to tell you that. That's just shooting from the hip to say what I think about this based on my experience with working with a law enforcement person in my school, which I wouldn't want to lose at high school level, but there are some careful considerations.
Can I just ask if anyone's opposed to removing Z and AA?
Can I just ask one more question? I'm sorry. Again, just trying to play catch up here. For the SROs that are on here, so these would be in addition to the ones that we already have. Okay, got it. Thank
We
you.
have one.
Okay.
All right, Noah?
The next one, again, just going up the list. Item Y, the substance abuse prevention coordinator. That is one I will have to make a game time decision on. I gotta be honest, I am really torn. It's a lot of money, but it's something that I have personal connections in my family that I know it could have made a huge difference with. So it's one of those that I can't say, I wouldn't necessarily say I'd be opposed to it coming out from a financial standpoint. I got, like you were saying earlier, Rachel, there's just baseline education things that we have to consider for our buildings. I also know that it could make a huge difference.
Whose suggestion was that? Somebody, who can speak to that? I have a question.
I
No,
can,
no, no.
it was in a program that Steve was at. I can't remember
So-
where they recommended it.
It came up about a year and a half ago at a policy committee. One of our policies says if in a event, we recommend our students to a substance abuse counselor, which we don't have. And so because it came up and it's in our policy, we did not immediately remove it from the policy. We put it in the budget last year. When we gave the flat percentage, it was one of the things that just could not make the cut. So that's why it's here
But I
again
guess
this year.
my question is, will they serve the district? Like, I get that they might be mainly based at the middle school, high school, but will they give education or whatever to the elementary school?
I don't know. I don't know if Linda Pease,
I would be in favor of that, like understanding they'd be housed at the middle school and high school, but, you know, like we have data, like go and do something appropriate for the elementary schools.
I don't know, Linda, if you feel comfortable speaking about.
It would be how people decided to use the person. I mean, at the high school, we are partnered with Lincoln Health. We have some services. We have more services than we've ever had before at both the middle school and high school because we have counselors attached to us. We have the Center for Tobacco Independence that is working with us. We have Lincoln Healthy Kids or Lincoln Healthy Partners who's working with us with Michaela Scheffler and Will Matson. So we have resources, but if this is a substance abuse coordinator for the district, then I guess we would have to look at other schools who have a substance abuse school. I'm big on, I say this to my staff all the time when they give me ideas. I say, yeah, you find me 6 schools that are doing that and you bring it back to me and we'll look at it. But just to do it, like we gotta have schools that we know are doing it and how are they doing it? I'm just big on that.
I agree with that, but I also feel like Mid-Coast Maine has the biggest drug rate of any place around here. And obviously my kids are lucky because we don't do anything, drink wine, but we, yes, we do not. I know a lot of kids that are not that fortunate and have been caught at schools smoking weed or doing drugs, or there's fentanyl out there, there's methadone. I mean, it scares me. So I guess I'm not opposed to it. And I'm sure that somebody that does the work could speak a little bit more to it. I don't know. I mean, maybe you know, Tim, because you're on the ambulance. I don't know if you see kids or I'm not.
Well, my question is there an agency that we could partner with instead of hiring somebody? I mean,
That's what Linda said they are. Would like to
right.
work.
I mean, so if an elementary school needs that, how do you partner with another agency to do that? So it's not coming out of our budget, you know?
I'm not sure.
Leah?
A couple questions, I guess. Julia, as like the largest elementary school population, do you feel like this would be helpful?
Without knowing.
You don't know what it is?
we would do and how we would use them, I couldn't answer that question.
And then I was just gonna say, you know, I would assume that if this is a position that gets created, then a job description would go in front of the personnel committee and we'd be able to put input there and then. I don't know, but it is hard without it doesn't seem like there was a real plan and, discussion between the schools about what that might look like and what would be most helpful.
All right, I have a list here. I've got Rachel, Naomi, Noah, then Emily.
I think this could look a lot of different ways, and as we're facing federal budget cuts at an enormous level, has the potential to check a lot of boxes with one role if it was a district-wide position that was very thoughtfully created. Because substance abuse prevention looks like having healthy food. Substance abuse prevention looks like resiliency building. Substance abuse prevention looks like social skills. And you can sort of, if you bring it way down, you know, you can do this work in pre-K. It doesn't look like, don't take the drugs that they offer you, but it's the rest of it. And I think, again, I've had a lot of feelings most of the time, a lot about this issue in particular. And I think, oh God, this is a hard one. Because I think there's a lot of ways that we could use it very thoughtfully to check off a lot of boxes if we wrote the position correctly and we found the right person to fill it.
Naomi?
I know that this says substance abuse prevention coordinator. And I think the word prevention makes it seem like it's gonna be a little curriculum where it's gonna be, you know, whatever. In my mind, I would love to see it be a substance abuse counselor. I mean, yes, there are some counselors at the high school, but I don't know that they have specialized, you know, knowledge of substance abuse counseling and how that differentiates from other types of counseling. I think a good place to look for an example of where it's worked is up at Belfast, where they have the alternative education program called BCOPE. And kids are getting one-on-one counseling with a certified substance abuse counselor and LADC who has specialized skills. This is not just some person who's going to come in. They have very, very specialized skills. This is the kind of person who can walk down a hallway full of kids and they will notice something about one kid that says, I think they might be using. I think they might be addicted. You know, it's not about, I mean, sure, do a DARE program, but that's not what it's like really about. And like it or not, I mean, Steve even said several months ago, he gave us in one of our, his reports to the board, you know, there was some committee who developed something or other and found what the worst areas were for different things. And for substance abuse, Knox County and Lincoln County. And here we are. There are kids in the high school and the middle school, I'm sure, who need someone they can talk to and who can work with them. Clearly, I'm very passionate about this because we have, you know, substance abuse in our family. And thank God it's not an issue anymore. But these kids, there's a lot more going on, I think, than it might appear. And a specialized person to help counsel these kids could make I mean, it could be a life-saving thing, quite literally.
I've got Noah, Emily, myself, Linda, and Eric. And Danny, sorry. I'll put you in.
And Jamie.
And Jamie, sorry.
Can I let Jamie go first, just because I don't want to say something she might be addressing as soon as I
You
say it.
started this, right? So you go ahead and let Jamie go and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you so much. I love to hear myself talk. So we, part of what Rachel had said, we have our health teacher, who's actually here this evening. If you had any questions for her, she loves to talk in public.
I don't think she agrees.
I don't think so either, but I'll throw it out there. Who actually does most of what you talked about, and those building parts. So for me, when I look at a substance abuse counselor, I think of a person who's more working one-on-one with students who need that support, who are already in that position. We have some preventative measures in place already that I think we work hard to put in place and support our students with as much of this building blocks as we can, even starting at the pre-K level. But just so you know, that's part of like what they're doing in health.
So can I? go
Noah,
now,
yep.
or- Okay. That did answer first part of my question. Second part is, are we allowed to make motions in the budget committee to send to other committees? Are we allowed to do that? Just want to make sure.
I have no idea. I would assume yes.
Okay. Then before I say the magic words, I'm gonna tell everyone what I feel like is a good idea based on what I've heard so far. I don't want to step on anyone's toes who still has their name in the queue. We all, it sounds like, appreciate the idea of what this could do. We also don't want to rush the decision. This is a big issue and it could be a massive help to kids in our district. I don't want to see us rush it. We have administrators telling us, like, if you don't know how they're going to be used, we don't know what we're going to do with it. I personally would like to, air quotes, because I don't want to do it yet, make the motion to send the this item line to the personnel committee to do more research into it, figure out what other districts are doing, how they're doing it, and then come back to the board when we have more information. I don't just want to shove it in because we need to shove it in and fund it. I want to make sure we know exactly what we're getting into and what we're going to get out of it, and make sure it's the best thing we can do for the kids.
But can we do that, Noah, before we vote on the?
No.
Tonight?
So with that said,
Yes, sorry.
with that said, I would be crossing it off for this year. It would not go in this year. And I'm sorry, Naomi, I understand. But I also don't want to see us rush into it. Just fun, like putting it in. I knew at least one hand. I want to make sure that we have it thoroughly thought out before doing so. So I'm not gonna.
I
make
got
the
a
motion
hand
yet
up too.
because I know there's like 9 people in the queue.
And Emily, am I next? Yes. So 30 plus years ago, tobacco money came back from the federal level to every state and every district that wanted to use it, substance abuse. Matt Lash would have been a student then, I believe. And we created a team called the Heart Team. Do you remember that, Matt? The Heart Team was made up of, and we got a lot of money, thousands and thousands of money. It was made up of community members, school employees. There was a minister on the team. There were students on the team. And none of us were paid, of course. Betsy Worcester and I were from Waldoboro. Francis Cross, the assistant principal.
There was also a substance abuse counselor, and that was my husband.
I don't think he was part of Heart Team. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't.
He had a shirt that said Heart Team.
Well, then maybe it was. Don't remember. Anyhow, and the money we used to, first of all, go for training. We went for 3 different trainings. We existed for about 10 years. And then we would come to the high school and put on programs for the kids. I don't know how much benefit we had from it. And I can't remember how much money. It was a lot of money. That was just one way of doing it. It didn't cost the school district anything. There must be money out there coming to the states from not just tobacco abuse, but all the substances now. I don't know. And I think the money came from the tobacco companies ultimately. So just another way of doing it without spending so much money. What does your husband's name? Okay. He probably was there. Why would I remember? Anyhow, just a whole different way of doing it, and fairly effective, I think, because of the kids that were on the team. Anyhow, that's it.
All right, I put myself down. I just wanted to say that I feel like we have a lot of resources that we can use to refer our kids to, and I'd rather do that than an added position to the budget. Linda Pease.
Okay, I'm coming up.
Loud and clear.
there's nobody at Madomic Valley High School who thinks that we do not have issues in our school with substances. We're right there with them all day long, and we know it. And we're working with them. But what I hope will help you with, I think we're getting a little misconstrued with when I'm saying counselor and what you're saying counselor. Okay, so I want to be really clear. First of all, when we started our partnership with Lincoln Health 4 years ago now, we became hooked to all kinds of people. So for the last 2 years, we have been hooked to Will Madison, who is a substance use prevention coordinator from Healthy Lincoln County, and Michaela Scheffler, who is the program management specialist, community health improvement at Lincoln Hospital. And they have come in for 5 sessions with all of our freshmen, and then repeat sessions with our sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Similar to what Emily is talking about, they come to us with Lincoln Health, and they do the prevention to everybody. So it's like tier 1. They do these tier 1 presentations to all the kids in the grade. And then as part of that, what gets sent to students is if you are having an issue or a question or a problem, after these presentations, there are numerous ways that you can either reach out to your own high school counselor or to Michaela and Will, or to some of the other Lincoln Health people that we have attached to our health office. So there are 3 different avenues that you can go. In our health office at the high school, we have our nurse and our nurse's aide. We also have periodically a Lincoln Health administrator who makes appointments for students to see a nurse practitioner or a behavioral health counselor. And sometimes those behavioral health counselors refer out even further to the kind of specialized treatment that you're talking about. When I say counselor, I'm not just talking about our school counselors. No, they're not the people who are working with kids who are addicted. It might be that kids will go and say to their counselor that they are, and then they refer out. So it's not a complete substance abuse counselor. I believe that all of these programs would still be in place, even if we had a district substance abuse counselor, because it would be a district substance abuse counselor. And again, I would suggest that we find out exactly what that looks like in other places. I usually ask my people to find 5 or 6 people that are doing something and how they're doing it before we just say, yep, we're doing it, we want it. So we know what it looks like. The other thing that's difficult, and I'm not going to pull any punches, is that with these services, these people move around a lot. And one of the problems that we have is that Lincoln Health themselves have a difficult time, just like Sweetser, and I can't remember some of the other companies that we use, but counselors are moving around, and our biggest problem is that we attach a student to a counselor, and we've had difficulty having the same counselor for 5 or 6 months. They find a different position and they move on. And that's one of the biggest concerns. So like with the SRO, it's how many people are out there to take on this position? Are they committed to the area? Which you can't really ask in an interview. How long are you planning to stay? That's a no question that you cannot ask. But that is one of the concerns that we have. So I'm not saying that we're just handling it with our 3 school counselors who have kids sign up for English and math and social studies. We do have some options. Sure, in a perfect world, I'd love to have a substance abuse counselor just for Madomic Valley High School. But the other part of that is a person has to say, yes, I want your help. And one of the biggest issues that we have when we come up against kids who are struggling is that we have very strong, resilient, private people in our area that have the right to say, thank you, but no, I don't want that. So I think that's something we also have to think about. So I don't know if that helps you in making your decision. I hope so. We're not totally without resources, so I just wanted you to know that. Thank
Linda,
you.
what was Will's title?
Will's title, and I looked it up on his email because I wanted to get it right. He is a substance use prevention coordinator for Healthy Lincoln County. And they've done 5 freshmen and then I think the sophomores and seniors, since they get it once in 5 as freshmen, then we do twice for the older kids. So I just wanted you to know.
Are you saying use or abuse? You.
Substance use prevention coordinator. Thank you.
I have a long list, so I need to know if everybody still wants to be on it or if we're going to move on with this. I've got Danny, Eric, Rachel, Naomi, Melvin, Tom, and Ben.
Yes.
That's the first round.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
You can take my
Danny?
name off.
To go to Leah's point and kind of to go to Noah's point, not to sound like the bad guy, but I don't know if the personnel committee would be the one to do this. And I only say that because the first line in policy DDE under Personnel Negotiations Committee, assisting the superintendent in reviewing and recommending to the board the adoption of teacher and administrative job descriptions. So this position to me would not fall under either one of those.
Are we allowed to make recommendations to, say, Tom specifically? Recommend to the assistant superintendent to research and report back to the full board on the use/effectiveness on a substance abuse counselor?
Or the next budget season, you mean?
Yes, for the next budget season.
I think that's something we can talk about
Yeah.
anytime before the
Oh,
next
yeah.
budget season. I don't think we need to do it
I
tonight.
wasn't saying, no, we shouldn't talk about, no, I don't mean that at all.
Eric,
My family, unfortunately, has been affected by alcohol. Not to know that's the only one, but we know it. And I think it's very important that this is brought up, that there's someone who is fully knowledgeable about addiction. And it's very important, and it is very difficult to break. And it is one that there needs to be consistency with both people, counselor and participant. And it can go on for years. It's not something that we're over immediately, you don't really get over it. It takes it. And so it's something that is vitally important to get it as soon as possible, to point this out to families, which is a dangerous thing to do anyway with anonymity, kids and whatnot. So it's someone who has to have a lot of knowledge of what to do and how to approach children and help them through it and try to get away from it. So it's something that doesn't just go away. I would have one recommendation that we leave it in the budget like a placeholder, and we have the time to research who can be in there and do it right. And so it's there for next year. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to use it like something else. If it doesn't work, if you can't find someone, it goes into a reserve of some sort. But I think it's an extremely important thing for the kids in this area, and it's all over the place. So I think it's somehow we should address it, and it has to be a specific person with those credentials that knows what they're doing. It can't be a broad-based type of company.
Rachel Wilcox.
So I think one thing I want to bring up, education and healthcare work in two very siloed universes in which we are all trying to do very much the same thing. Breaking through those silos is really challenging because in the outpatient world, I do a lot. I'm sure Linda and I share many people, but the barriers are there that prevent communication between us in a meaningful way. I think we all agree that this is vitally important. I think the point of staffing and the importance of building rapport is a major point to consider. I think it's very important that we take a step back maybe and not shoulder this alone. I don't know if it's a conflict of interest or able to do this in my position on the board. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of sort of projects that I'm working on that might address this. I know a lot about the resources that are available, probably, no offense, Tom, but more on a community level than Tom might know. I am more than happy to put together my thoughts, what I know, what I think might be helpful. I'm happy to chat with building administrators, with health teachers. My mom was a health teacher. I think it's important work. I don't think we need to spend the money on it right now. So I don't want to dismiss the concerns and dismiss its relevance, but I'm willing to add another thing to my list of projects and bring some of that information to the board, to whoever wants to listen to it as a way to problem solve without bringing a line item budget.
Melvin?
I really don't even know where to start because I see this as a multi-generational problem. Yeah, it was going on when I was in grade school. I was a diabetic. I had insulin syringes. Can you give me one of them? Can you give me one of them? No, I can't give you one because I am a cheap bastard. And that's the reason right there. But my brother, 2 years younger, he was hooked on that stuff. Still on them. Yeah, and this is back in the 70s. So how are we going to straighten this problem out overnight when we got 4 generations in there between me then and now? I don't think there's money enough in this world to stop it because the drug problem is all about the money. Somebody's there. If you got $10, I'm gonna have it. And if we save one life, we've done a great job. But the taxpayer don't care how many lives we lose. They're tired of paying.
Tom, did you have something you wanted to add? I saw your hand a couple times, but I wasn't sure. if you
Yeah,
wanted to.
I don't want to presume that everybody in the room knows that there is a specific credential for a counselor to deliver substance abuse counseling. And so this is to Naomi's point. If what's written here is an amount of money to budget for a substance abuse prevention coordinator. That is not an interchangeable term with a substance abuse counselor, which is a specific license. And often the people who have that license are an LCSW. So there are districts that there are policies all over the place around this, but there are districts that have it written into policy that they will employ a counselor who has this credential. And then when students have an infraction, that they will be mandatorily referred to that counselor for attention and services. I'm not necessarily suggesting that that's what, we can't do that tonight. But that's a thought that we might carry forward. Noah in particular had suggested we continue to think about this. That's something we could think about. And I think that this also speaks to Eric's point that perhaps one way to think about this, the amount of money sitting in front of you is as a placeholder. And I honestly don't know what the legalities of that are. I don't know if we have to be specific with what the position would be right now at the moment. I don't know if you know, Karen.
Not until we vote in the
Yeah.
position, I believe.
Right, not,
Right.
right, the position doesn't exist, so there has to be a position voted in and then funded.
Okay.
Good.
Did everyone speak?
I've got Ben.
I was just going to say, I don't think it diminishes the importance of the issue to say that we should probably make sure before we put this in to be funded, that we make sure that what we want to get out of the position is what is going to be gotten out of it. And given the state of things of this budget season, this is probably one where we can start staking out and planning some of our most important priorities going forward, but maybe not taking the dive of putting a dollar sign on them at this point. So, we can start laying the groundwork for some of these things. We can start doing research, but maybe this just isn't the year to move, given a lot of the other things we're going to have to be dealing with.
Okay.
Is
That's
that
the
in there?
list, yes.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
I just feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say, because Naomi said it last time and it's nothing to do with what you said, but when you refer to the alternative program being for addiction, I just want to make clear that our program here, the students are in those programs for the reasons they're in there, but it's not because they're addicted. And I just don't want any of the parents or children who are listening to this feel awkward or off-put that they're going to go to school and people are going to assume that those children have addictions. I can't speak to why they're in those programs, but I know that's not the reason.
So the program that I mentioned up in Belfast, Sequel, is
No, I
is
understand.
simply an alternative education program. But many of those kids have a substance abuse problem.
Understood. I just wanted to go on record that that isn't the reason RSU 40 students are in that.
Emily,
Oh, is the list all done?
it is.
Yes. So based on what Linda Pease said, I think probably Maine Health is providing us what we need or what we can afford at this point. However, I'm thinking about passing the entire budget. If we cut everything now and the budget fails, then we have to start cutting muscle. Not just fat, but muscle, and it's going to be really painful. So maybe at this point, we shouldn't take everything out. This budget could easily fail. People are very concerned. Just thinking strategically.
Is it regarding this position? You two, Noah and Randy, is your comment regarding this position?
Mine was not.
Yep, go ahead.
No, okay.
Okay. I would like to poll the people here on whether or not we're taking this out of this budget tonight. Okay, so is anyone opposed from removing the 90,000 from tonight's budget, from the budget tonight? Okay, we're taking it off and we're gonna move on to the next thing. Can we do that?
Can I speak to the next things?
Yep.
So Holly Doe is out of state right now, and I'm hoping that Matt's gonna help me, but Holly sent an email to Steve and I saying that if the board got to the point of deciding which of her things are the priority, which are Q, the surveillance cameras, B, which is the swank motion picture, W, social media manager software, and X, RSU 40 website, that her priority would be the surveillance cameras.
Could you say those again?
Yeah.
Did I say that fast enough? No. Q, which is the surveillance cameras for 50,000.
That's her number one?
We have to do that.
It's legal.
B is swank motion picture for 4,900.
V is in Victor.
W, social media manager software for $3,200, and X, RSU 40 website, 10,000. I just wanted to communicate on Holly's behalf since she's not here, said if we had to pick one, it would be that, and hopefully Matt can speak to that.
I personally would like to keep all of those items in. The other ones are smaller numbers, and I think they're important to take care of some issues that we have regarding our website and keeping us liable for the motion picture license. I guess I would like to say about that. So I've got Noah.
Two things. One, I don't want to come across as rude, but I do want to address what you just said, Emily.
Mhm.
The idea of just chucking it all to see if it sticks.
No,
That's-
that wasn't what I said.
Right, but if passing the whole budget, because cutting it down might not pass either, a bigger number is not going to look good, and then we come back with what we could have done tonight. I want to make sure we're coming across as putting our best foot forward and making all the hard decisions now, so we're not asking our tax base to tell us no, and then we'll try again. I want to, what we send them is what we need, understand what they're going through, and are trying our best. That's what I would.
And all I meant was be very strategic in the choices we make.
One thing I wanted to add to the $50,000 is, that's for 50,000 each year for 4 years. In addition to that is a 68,000 approximately, I don't know if Brian and Matt are here, cabling cost that if this is approved, we will put out the bid and try to pay for this year out of facilities budget.
68,000?
For cabling of all 7 buildings. Yeah.
Well, 50 plus 68.
Well, this
200 plus 68, right?
Right.
For 4 years.
It's 50 every year. For
every
4
year
hours.
for 4 years. So 68,000 is a one and done to, I don't know if wiring's the right word, but Brian.
Cabling.
Cabling.
Because it's for 4 years.
7 buildings with, as I understand it, quite a few more cameras than we have today in any of the buildings.
Did I hear somebody say that legally we have to have the system in place? Though?
We don't legally have to have cameras.
Well, we have to replace what
We have to replace what we have or stop using what we have.
I understand the 50's in here, but where's the 68?
We're gonna try to take it out of the budget we're in right now, out of Brian's budget. We're gonna use money Brian already has.
In this current year.
Current year.
Except for the 50 is a 4 year.
Were there any other, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead, Noah. I don't-
were there any other alternatives, and maybe Matt can speak to this, other than this particular option, the $50,000 for 4-year lease program? Were there any other options you guys were able to look into as far as other hardware that would upgrade us from the ones we have to move on from?
That's a pretty open 50,000. I mean, that's the cost of doing business. We're dealing with antiquated equipment at the high school. A lot of the cabling costs will be, that talked about doing this year, will be tied up there because everything there is running on coax and everything now is power through. So basically we have to abandon everything at the high school because we're crashing. We have a lot of devices that we can't use anymore. They've been prohibited. So we have to replace those devices. And then it's just filling in the holes. You know, we did what we could initially and we need to fill in what we have now. That's not a $50,000 vendor specific number. That is just what.
It's a placeholder for what.
That sort of, okay. Implementation.
Rachel?
I think in the current climate and school safety, if we're not gonna go for SROs, we've got to do something to make sure that we are as aware and prepared and aware of what's happening on school campuses as possible. So I feel pretty strongly that this is an important one to keep.
Linda?
I don't want to take all of your time, but I just think it's important that you have as much information as possible to make a decision. And when we talk about antiquated, it's a capital ANTIQUATPD. So what happens to us at the high school is somebody will say, something will happen, and somebody will say, check the cameras. And Mr. Carlson and Mrs. Cordero and I just chuckle. Because that assumes that you walk into a room and you look at one monitor and you click, I want to look at 10:51 on March 31st, between 10:51 and 11:02 on March 31st. And that takes anywhere from 2 to 3 hours with the system that we have right now. I'm really not kidding. You go in, you sit down, one camera is 5 minutes off from all, one service 5 minutes off from all the others. And then when the time changes, so the first thing you have to do is you have to go in and you have to say, right? You have to say, okay, which camera are you gonna best be able to see it at? Okay, that camera is 5 minutes off, but oh no, it's daylight savings time, so it's an hour and 5 minutes off. And then the thinking, it takes, so I basically look at Matt Carlson, who is the expert with the three. He usually will go in and in 45 minutes later, he'll call me and say, okay, I think I have the right time. Okay, now what are we looking at? So I thank you, because the cameras are really where we can go to find a lot of things, and it's the exact proof, and you don't have to worry about, except for what happens in the bathroom, reasonable suspicion versus suspicion beyond all doubt, or, beyond all doubt, you did this. In the bathrooms, that's a whole other story, which we're trying to deal with. But antiquated, at least for us, it's huge. We don't have cameras where we really need them. The ones that we have don't work as well. They're grainy, and they take us a really long time, so that it takes one of our assistant principals out of the mix of managing the day if we're looking for something. So it gives new meaning to, hey, just take a look at the cameras. So I just want to say that.
If I could add to that, right now we have 3 different brands of cameras going, and none of them are connected in any way. This would pull everything under one umbrella, be able to access the camera from cameras across the district from one interface. Just a big deal. It's not efficient at all what we're doing right now. So,
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say that at our school, and I think at some of the other schools, we have so much vandalism. So I'll watch the cameras and pin it down, like Linda says, and spend hours, but I can't get a picture of the license plate. So I can kind of see a fuzzy vehicle and someone driving, but I can't see enough for us to even stop or catch the person that's tearing up our fields. So it's really a frustrating process, because even if you can find it, it's not in enough detail to do anything with.
Usually the friendship made them.
Josh?
I just want to echo, I don't think there's a single thing you can do to ensure safety, confidence, that's staff, facilities, students. I use them every day. It's, assault, vandalism. I mean, there's just no more important tool that we could have for the district's protection and the protection of our students than a robust camera system.
I'm just gonna speak from the standpoint, my guess is these cameras, you have to actually go to Friendship Village School to check their cameras.
currently, yes,
Okay, but with this new system, it can be accessed.
cloud-based, yes.
So the reason why is safety alone. If there's an incident going on in one of our schools, Lord forbid, something happens, and you can't get to physically get to that camera system, just think of, we've seen it. We've seen it across our country. And I work part-time again now over 911 dispatching, so I've taken the calls from the schools on what's been going on. Okay, and you need to have security. And yes, tearing up the fields is a bad thing. Okay, I agree. Okay, that's my school down there. Okay, but at the same time, at the same time, I'm more concerned about the safety of the students, the teachers, the people that are there. So.
Noah?
Yeah, I feel like I should have worded my question better. I'm in no way considering not voting for this. I just wanted to see if that was vendor specific or not, which.
Everything, there's just a basic entry level cost. And this is a big project. And that's really what it comes down to. And even the vendors we've looked at, there are a lot of different options within their own product line. Vendors, they have like 300 different cameras. It's mind-boggling. So, it's a challenge, but, try to make the most of what we can. That's our big entry point. Is where we hope we think we're a good spot.
Okay. Is anyone still considering removing Q? Are we good to leave Q? Yes,
We
we're leaving
gotta.
Q. We've got to leave Q.
You gotta
Okay.
leave it.
We're looking at V, W, and X, which is the Swank motion picture, social media manager, and the website update.
Leave those.
I feel like we should leave those. Is there anyone who does not want to leave them in?
Can I just get clarity on the website item one? I remember Holly talking about it, but for some reason I don't remember what she actually said. Sorry to make you get back.
Matt's getting his exercise.
So we have a functioning website as is. I mean, it works pretty well. What she's talking about is moving to a product that more closely aligns to Parent Square. So to streamline how we push data out or information out to the general public.
And is that a one-time cost or would that be a?
There's a big chunk of that is an implementation fee upfront, and then going forward with people.
And you could take that one out.
Yeah, all you have to say there's an annual fee, but I don't recall how much of that.
Everybody's got their fingers in it.
All right. I don't hear anyone opposed. I think we're gonna move on to something else to talk about.
Sounds like it.
Okay,
Am I putting okay next to all those?
Yeah.
for now. Yep. Multilingual teacher from half-time to full-time district-wide. We've already heard some information about this. It sounds like it's really important with the increasing number of children we have that are multilingual. Is anyone opposed to leaving it in the budget? Okay, we're leaving multilingual. Athletic trainer, switching from contract service to hiring a person with an increased cost of about $36,000.
Definitely need it.
Mm-hmm.
Is anyone opposed to moving forward with that?
Definitely not opposed. I can't tell you how many games I would have missed in high school without the athletic training.
Yes.
Like, I was held together with athletic.
We're gonna have sports program, we gotta have it.
We pay for the ambulance when they're here. Matt has various ways he pays for it. Ambulance is one of the last, right, Matt? If you have to, you'll call the ambulance or the,
No, they
sorry, that's not what
stand
they're
by. I had to
called.
pay a
but-
bill. They're here. They stand by the games.
Without Katrina, the past year and a half, we've had EMS or per diem there for every home contract.
And there's a charge for that.
Yes, we've used that money budgeted for the previous contracted service for that.
Do you pay the ambulance bill? The district does? No, I got a bill.
No, not the bill, the
To
injury.
be there.
but-
Yeah.
Just
Oh.
introducing.
So they pay-
I don't know what's that
The ambulance comes up and sits up at the school
Yeah.
with two,
That's true. You got your answer right.
yeah. And
Double dip.
there's two people that are on the truck and they
I
get paid
thought
to
you
be there.
meant they were gonna pay the bill when the student left.
No.
I'll give it to you.
We're not
Now, the
refunding.
meter has started for you the moment they pull out.
All right. I am looking at literacy resources, Spire. P,
You skipped R.
I did because it's
Oh, okay.
the removal of a teacher. That, I believe that this has to do with our new literacy program that we should continue to fund since we were deep into it.
Oh, that's fire. That's,
I think it's
no, that.
it different?
Well,
Special
we've
education.
got several components of this. So Spire is the one that is for special education students and intervention. And we really do need that. So that, and Casey, jump in if I'm missing anything, but that's actually for the resources. That's not for training. That's for the resources that we'll need for next year for Spire.
We're already out of some to get us through the end of this year.
Yes. The other item is for ongoing PD with 2 new programs that are associated with literacy.
So that's O and P we're talking about.
I do hope that over time, next year will be year 2 with these programs. I think we need the PD for year 2. I think this could be a dwindling cost There will always need to be something there for new teachers to be trained.
I saw Rachel's hand, yeah.
Anecdotally, I would like to share that I did see a young student from Warren Community who was in one of the Spire programs with marked improvement on their latest IEP report. Just so that's all I know. It seems to be helping at least one child. One would assume we can extrapolate that data to more. But it was noted specifically that that was sort of credited with some of the improvement.
Anyone have any questions about that? Is there anyone opposed to leaving that in the budget? Okay, both of those, Julie, both of those. That's O and P. The van drivers were already removed. They're gonna find that money in their existing budget
So we just need you
or
to vote.
existing
We need you to vote
amount.
in the position.
We'll vote in one position when it comes time to it. One teacher, Miller School, M.
Yes, keep it.
And he says, keep it. Does anyone have any thoughts?
The board doesn't recommend having 20-something kids in a class.
That's
That-
correct.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, so no, I would say,
Here's my thought, I'd like to say, and I'll get you Naomi after.
Oh, she's gonna steal my question.
I'm feeling like we're one school unit with a lot of teachers all over in multiple buildings. And I'm wondering if we can't rearrange a little bit so that the places that need the teachers get the teachers. So instead of adding a position, I'm wondering if we task the superintendent with making sure that it's covered in the way it should be. Where I am.
What was that again?
Instead of adding a position, having the superintendent look at the staffing levels at each school and moving the teacher to where, removing one that can be moved to where it needs to be. No,
we're
I'm
still leaving one teacher per grade level at every school, at
Mhm.
least.
I'm looking at some of the lower classrooms with lower numbers. classes with lower numbers.
Like every grade deserves their own teacher.
Yes.
So that wouldn't be suggesting that Friendship would lose a teacher in combined classes.
That's not my suggestion, but I suppose that would be up to whatever the administration decides to do.
We did that before, it was terrible.
I think I had Noah. Was there anyone else with their hand up? Naomi? I'm sorry, Naomi was first, sorry.
Yeah.
And then
fine.
Noah.
I mean, this may be just like a really, I'm not being flippant when I say this at all. Part of our whole redistricting was to get some kids down to Friendship. So is there a way that in the projected class sizes with 2 teachers, we could solve that by getting some kids to Friendship?
So when the bus route was looked at and the area they would come from, it would not remove very many fifth grade students. I don't remember the amount, I think 4.
Well, there's also 4th grade and 3rd grade that would need to have some kids moved.
No, they have 3 teachers in those grades. No,
Yeah, I was gonna bring up probably the exact same wording as you, Julie. So, I mean, just looking at, I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, but if you look at grade 1 class sizes across our district, we have a 17 kids projected for next year at Union, 22 projected at Prescott, 14 projected at Miller, and Warren is projected for 11 with 3 teachers. I'm not sure if and how it would work, but instead of the creation of this new teacher position at Miller, is it possible to fill the teacher need at Miller with moving a line item number 3 down in the titles? I was looking back in older budgets, that actually appears to be a position that was removed and then added into titles within the last couple of years. And So rather than bringing that kindergarten teacher out of titles at Warren, is it possible to do a teacher shuffle and move that teacher position down to Miller? I understand that would bring the class sizes at Warren up to 16. That also is not out of the realm of 2 other schools in our district. I know first graders can be a handful. I don't have kids of my own, but I get to watch quite a few.
I'm happy to have you have mine.
It's, that just makes sense to me, especially if we're in a fiscal year where we're looking at tightening the belt a little bit and really being careful with how we use our resources. Especially also when you look at projected student numbers for Warren coming up the pipeline. I know those numbers tend to go up, but projected pre-K for next year is 16. So if that number comes through, 2 teachers makes especially more sense once it makes it to the kindergarten, first grade level. So that's the only reason why I would suggest that specifically. I know Justin's probably here, and I know he probably want to speak to that, but it's just, is it not here? Oh, I'm sorry.
Jason, I mean,
It's just,
online, you raised it.
I don't want to get too specific in the weeds, but that just seems to make sense to me. Where we can address a, I don't want to say overpopulation of teachers, but a disparity is the wrong word as well. I'm really struggling with vocabulary here. I don't want to say it the wrong way, but if we have a school that really, really needs this teacher to get out of the 20-something student range, and it brings another school up to par with what other buildings are doing and succeeding at, I feel like that's responsible of us.
Appropriate allocation of resources.
Thank you. Very eloquently said.
Although for a first grade teacher, it has to jump to be a 6th grade teacher.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, I don't want to be the specific person saying this 1,000 number person moves where. That is up to our administration and the building heads. It's just, the money's already in here, rather than, as Randy says, creating another white line where we're already looking at moving this position out of titles. And it looks like it could be better used at Miller than down in Warren. And I say that with the bad vocabulary again. That just seems to make sense. It gets a position out of titles, which we're always trying to do. It's better to private fund all of our positions. And then this looks forward into the future, like Steve has in his proposal of addressing things over the next few years and addressing student population concerns coming up. Like I said, I don't want to be too specific. I feel like our building administrators can make that happen the way it needs to, so we're not asking a kindergarten teacher to teach 6th grade or vice versa. But that feels more appropriate than creating a new one and moving that one out of titles as well.
I just wanted to mention that. I don't think we are going to be moving that out of titles. Unless we choose to, but I mean, the whole idea of the tan lines now are gonna be.
Right, right now, that's the like set up the fund that Karen was talking about. I guess it would be eliminating line 3 altogether from that fund.
Right.
And instead moving that position into the general fund rather than funding line M. It would replace it.
So there's no cost difference.
Correct. Whatever the cost
Very little
difference is
cost
from
difference.
teacher to teacher salary.
I have Leah and then Rachel.
I'm online if you guys can hear me. This is Justin.
Hi, Justin.
So I don't know if you want me to speak, but my wife is sick and I'm on kid duty getting them to and for practices right now. I anticipated that this might be coming down the pipeline at some point. I know whichever teacher was moved probably wouldn't be happy about it, but if it's what we need to do, it's what we need to do.
Thank you for
Thank you.
being understanding. I don't make the suggestion lightly. I want to make sure you know that.
I understand that.
We don't want to cut anybody or any jobs, but we gotta appeal to the taxpayer.
Yeah, I don't want to get lost in the weeds and everyone think we're just looking at numbers. I understand these are people's jobs. These are kids' lives we have to deal with in this budget. So
So will we be removing him?
it would be removing M, and I don't know how that logistically would work as of line items, Karen. But it would, on my piece of paper, I have number 3 crossed out and written, instead of funding M, the money from line 3, moving it in.
Okay. I don't know exactly how to write the motion, but I can find out for the board meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
What is the 3 you're talking about?
Number 3 down here in the title section.
That's with, okay.
Leah?
I just am generally stating my agreement that I feel like we need to do some shifting district-wide to make that work.
And this is just one suggestion. I'm sure, Tom, if you looked at it, you could probably find other areas that might be better suited, moving some stuff around. I don't know. This is just one specifically right in front of us where I can see a need and a way to fill it. So
It makes sense to me.
Rachel?
Again, this is my first budget season, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding the process. I 100% agree with Noah, and I think my only hesitation is I just want to make, without sort of like dictating exactly where the chips fall, that by pulling it out, we don't get to the yellow line for Julia, because
no.
I know,
Yeah.
I know we can't sort of like, it's not our job right now to say,
And if it's better for
want to know
Karen
what I'm
to
doing here.
figure out the wording of what that motion would look like.
Yeah.
The end goal is that teacher position does get filled at Miller.
Right. To maintain.
And we reduce and reduce is the hot button word, I understand. The number of kindergarten teachers at Warren would go down.
Or whatever grade. they
Or
choose.
whatever grade. is
You're
best suited to-
suggesting that we reallocate existing resources rather than adding a resource.
Right.
And you're
Right.
also
Right.
emphasizing
Good
that
wording.
the real need is in Miller.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Sorry, I took a long time to say that in a really bad way, and he summarized it in about 5 seconds.
I mean, I'm in the chair.
All right. So, okay, yes.
So on number 3, I know we're not supposed to talk about people, but this position, I'll just say what I'm,
Well, I don't know what you're about to say, but the way this is set up, and Karen, jump in if I get this wrong, is that the overall intent is to address part of the title issue by reducing a teacher who is currently paid for in a position that is currently paid for in titles. However, at the same time, based on enrollment, the suggestion is to reduce a position at the same school in another grade. So due to her retirement. So the position that is presently funded in titles would go away, but that person would be able to move to another position that remained open because the person in it is retiring. Does that make
Is-
clear as mud?
well, it's the reason I was asking, like, not knowing what the position, the qualifications, because that person only say qualified to teach K-3.
Oh, that's a great,
That's-
so the certification impact area that would be like in the contract is a K-8.
Oh, okay.
And it
Okay.
also wouldn't necessarily be that
It's-
person
yeah.
moving to another classroom. That would all be figured out internally.
Right.
They could do a whole shift of people who wanted to.
Yeah.
They all get right in.
Okay.
Take the horn.
Oh, we are feeling that.
I guess I'm just wondering how it's gonna end up being in the budget, like, to make sure that it.
I think what I'm hearing people talk about is taking this amount out of the budget, but it's with a directive to fill that spot at Miller, make sure Miller has 3 5th-grade classrooms.
So I'm envisioning, and Danny and Steve can work on it, Julie, to write a motion that's independent of the budget that just says staff movements between two buildings. I don't know, I've never seen a motion like that, and I don't know if Steve just has the authority without the board to do that. I would say he could, but we can talk about that.
I believe that he does. We got, I would
Because
want
we
to
hire
check, go
teachers,
home
we
into that.
hire them for the district, we don't hire them for a school.
Right.
Correct.
And you can assign them within their impact area.
Emily?
The kind of detail we're getting into now, if you dig into statute, main statute, or how a school board functions, it is not appropriate what we're suggesting. Our role is to tell remember I said this, one employee, superintendent, to use staffing appropriately so that every school in our district has, no, we're talking about specifically moving one teacher here, there, and other places.
I'm not telling you which teacher.
Everyone's been corrected when it's.
I know, but we're going outside of statute, which is we have one employee and we instruct that employee to use the teachers efficiently, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement about that.
So you're saying, Emily, that when we craft the motion, and I don't disagree with you.
Why are we making a motion?
Well, I don't think there's a motion for this here right now.
I don't either.
It's part of the motion to approve a budget amount. So I'm discussing the line item put before me by our one employee.
And what are you suggesting, the line items?
I'm suggesting the line item M goes away. The money for M goes away. The money that is currently being used for the number 3 item in titles, that also goes away. There's a retirement happening at Warren. That position
Don't
simply,
wrap that in, that position's being
sorry, right,
eliminated.
eliminated. So that, yeah, thank you.
So these both
The
go
number
away.
3 that position would come out of titles. And instead of going to Warren, fills the position at Miller.
That's up to the superintendent and the principal of those two schools to decide. It's not up to us to decide.
Funding the position is up to us.
Funding,
So we could,
yes.
so if we took the funding out, then they can make the decision whether,
How they do it.
where they go. That's not an uncommon thing to move positions around. I've seen it.
Right.
I mean, that's how we dealt with it in another school district. It happened every year, and it happened to be 6 like teachers you say, who wants to? Well, I don't say that. You can find fill those positions. Yeah, it's tough for a first grade teacher to go to 6th, you're right, or 5th. But there probably might be a 4th grade teacher that would go up. That's how we wound up, but that's administration.
Yes.
We're not talking about administration now, but all we're talking about is
Money.
money.
We're talking about money.
So
I'm not.
we're not talking about cutting and adding positions. We're talking about taking out that.
Right.
That's all.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Pre-K, we have an ed tech. And, we have, an ed tech that is being removed because we're moving that classroom, and we have two ed techs that we need to move out of the grant and into the general fund. We don't really have a choice. We cannot run the program without the ed tech, and we no longer have the funding. So, if anybody has anything to say about that, we can just okay it and move on. Brooke?
Which line item are you talking about?
I'm talking about K.
I have a question. And maybe I dreamed this up. Didn't we say that the numbers are down for pre-K for Warren for next year?
We're removing a pre-K classroom from Warren. That's why but it was funded in the grant, so it's there, but it doesn't reduce our obligation.
Actually, one of the pre-K teachers at Warren was funded through Title I. So that's
being eliminated.
That's being eliminated.
Okay, so we're gonna leave that okay. And we've heard from facilities regarding the the lease payment, 680, to take care of a series of capital improvements. Does anyone have anything further about that to ask?
And which item is that?
This is well, it's going to be I. So we're reducing the facilities amount that was voted into the budget last year and putting it into debt service or lease payment for the current work that needs to be done. Okay, we're leaving that. The rest, I'm not, unless anybody has anything to say about the rest of it, I don't know if we can do anything. Noah?
Nobody's gonna like me for this. There's only 7 minutes left, so I'm gonna make a motion to extend the meeting until we're done.
Second.
I just want
So
to know
moved.
with,
Second.
is R okay? I didn't put okay next to it, the reduction of the teacher at Warren, the retired position, okay.
So that was Noah and Brooke, all in favor of extending the meeting. That is everybody, right?
I had a question.
Opposed? Nope. Are you, you're?
Already voted.
All right, so that is 14 out of 16. What is your question, Noah?
It was for Karen. What would the name of that, fund you were talking about that would be funded by the fund balance to possibly fund the titles? What would that be called? I'm writing a motion, so I want to make sure I have my wordings correct before I say it out loud.
And nothing's not organized, you know what?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you on the
No, I
spot.
have it here somewhere.
I'm really good at
No,
doing that.
just like I have it.
Make a motion to send it. The motion's to send something to the board.
I'll just get it in my email. Hold on. So shall the board be authorized to establish an improvement of instruction reserve fund to pay, and you know, this would be the amount of money, transfer up to X to said reserve fund and expend from said reserve fund as needed at the school board's discretion. Similar language for special education reserve one, and we already have one for capital reserve.
What was the amount you suggested earlier?
Well, I had the 347, but then Tom reminded that there's actually around 750, 800,000, I
I mean,
think.
the total in titles is just under 900,000.
We've already removed a pre-K teacher
Right.
and
Minus
this,
these other things.
this teacher, so we could set an amount that's doable. We don't have to take, we don't have to reach that amount, but something that would encapsulate all that if we had to.
Okay. Thank you.
And you scroll down just to see where we're at for the bottom percentage. So we're at 5.5% of an increase. And what is that amount?
So, the 2.1 million.
On top of the, I mean, per total budget, if we were to go with that right now, what would the total budget amount be?
In the general fund would be $40,815,369. One more time. And just to remind everyone, this does not include the final insurance number. Or the,
But 10% is
With a
budgeted.
guess of 10% of insurance.
and,
But it could go up by over $300,000.
administrative contract. I couldn't find my words.
What did you plan on for the administrator contract?
Pardon?
What was in here for the administrator contract?
Forward going. So basically the contract as it exists today.
And that's through line item, was that X that you had okay written to? I just want to make sure I'm.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So that's the total amount that I just said. So
40 million covers through, is that X?
through X, yes.
Okay.
And we remove. Yeah, okay. But we didn't put back in that if we're gonna remove that teacher from titles. We
Oh,
need to
that's
add
right. It
that
would,
back in then.
it would remove line item M.
Remove M, but you want to add in
Don't get
the
nervous.
110 that's currently in 3. Is that correct?
I mean, it can stay in titles if Tom gets
No, you
this.
wouldn't have. No, you
I think
don't.
he wanted to remove it from titles though. Did you want to remove that from titles?
Yeah, I would like to see that position.
So put it in, put it in the general fund
Put it in
then?
the general.
So it would replace that position at Miller.
So 5.8. And that is
Which figure did you use?
40,926,085.
Can you say that louder?
41.
40926,085.
Which figure did you use?
What is that percentage? 5.8?
5.8.
So this does include an estimate of 10% for insurance, which could be up to 280,000 more than that. It also has incomplete numbers for administrators, but it's probably hopefully it's fairly close. But
Can you, not to make you do some more clicking, can you look and see what the number would be, if that position was still funded by I don't know if we could do that. If that position was still funded by title down in Warren or at Miller, I don't think we can do that, but
It would be 5.5%, and it would be 40815,369.
and is that a possibility, Tom, of that position still being funded by titles? Because I know you said
Theoretically,
it's very specific on like how we can use that money, where and when.
well, I mean, what I'd have to get down into the weeds of how we allocate the money following it. I couldn't expect anybody to remember all the labyrinthine rules that I tried to explain a few meetings ago.
Yep.
We have to make sure that we're allocating whatever we get equally, basically between Miller and Warren. And we have to make sure we're providing that service ourselves before we supplement it with the federal money. So I think theoretically, yes, but don't hold me to it.
but it wouldn't have to move to Miller, because
Yeah.
it could be it
Right.
could be a teaching position already in our
Okay.
general.
Yeah, so
It
then
wouldn't
maybe
matter.
keeping the position funded in titles, because if we do get the federal money for it, I would rather use the federal money for that. I think that would be a wiser decision,
So I'm taking it back out?
but
Yes.
yeah,
Just making sure.
Thank you.
I should have asked before I just said yes.
Karen, what's the new number?
40,815.
40,000?
Sorry,
40,000.
40,815,369 is what you said before. Sorry, I was getting
5.5?
5.5% with an estimated 10% increase on insurance.
So this, are you making a motion?
I don't want to cut anyone off, but I could.
Well, we can still discuss after you make it.
Okay. I don't really like this motion, but I'd like to make a motion to send to the board for approval a budget for fiscal year 25-26 in the amount of $40,815,369 to include items A through X, except for M, reflected on the budget summary sheet, to also include the creation of an improvement of instruction fund to be funded up to the amount of $750,000.
It actually, we need to add in food service and adult ed to that number for the budget,
Okay.
correct?
Well, they're separate articles. Some years you voted on them at budget, other years it's just been voted on. at budget.
So is it accurate the way he said it, or do we need to?
What he said is for the general fund only.
Good with that then?
Yes.
Second.
I'm like, is nobody gonna second that? I'm sorry.
No, what did you say the improvement instruction fund would be?
Did you second?
It would be
Yes.
funded up to the amount of $750,000.
No, can I read back to you what I think I heard?
I can give you the wording if you want to find it in my handwriting.
Motion to send to the board for approval a budget of 40,815,369 $369 to include items A through X, except for M, reflected on the budget summary sheet, including creation of an improvement of instruction fund up to the amount of $750,000.
Yeah, to be funded up to the amount of 750.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, that motion doesn't have the year in it.
I don't think that we can say exactly what's included. I think we just have to do the amount. Is that correct?
Okay.
I don't
then we
think
can-
so we just.
That's why I
line
said
that
the
says
ref-
what it includes.
That's why I said reflected on the budget summary, but we can do the amount and then everyone can remember that is for A through X. And including the titles shuffle.
Or I suppose the actual adoption's not happening until we get to the board meeting, so you can leave it in. Because at the board meeting, that appropriate motion will be worded the way it's supposed to.
We're just sending that funky wording to the board.
Yes, we're saying that funky wording to the board.
That's fine by me.
Brandy?
Yeah, no, the 700,
Yes.
is that an addition to the 40?
No, the $750,000, as Karen was talking about earlier, would be funded by the fund balance if we need it, if federal money doesn't come through to pay for the stuff in the TAN items. The TAN items,
Yeah.
1 through 8, with the exception of 3. So that's not. in
That's
addition.
money that's already budgeted. It's already in there. District already owns it.
I got Danny and then Karen, or whoever needs to go first.
So if I understand this motion right, the way it was worded, if later on the insurance goes to 14%, and say it was the 280,000, and the admin contract is more than what we have, say it totaled 400,000. That 400,000 increase is gonna come out of that 40 million. We're not gonna add 400,000, so in turn, you're gonna have to cut
I figured that discussion
$400,000.
would happen at the board meeting. This was for the budget committee recommending to the full board. That's what that motion was.
I'm sorry, Karen.
If I may advise, I think another fund similar to that should be set up for special education. The programming, and Karen or Casey can speak to it better than I, but what's in that local entitlement money funds children that go to special purpose private school. So with or without that funding, those children go to special purpose private school. And there's probably close to $700,000. Maybe that's a little high, 650,000 of money dedicated to children going to special purpose private school.
And would that also be called improvement of instruction fund?
Oh, no, that would be called,
Sorry.
if you were my kid, I'd tell you. No, anyway. That would be, shall the school board be authorized to establish a special education reserve fund to pay unanticipated special education costs, transfer up to X to said reserve fund and expend up to it at the board's discretion. So we would only fund it if necessary, and we'd only spend it if necessary for that specific purpose. We were advised to make sure we're specific in how we fund it and spend it.
Would it be better as the chair? Do you want it as an amended motion or do you want that as a separate motion?
Why don't we go ahead and amend it? I mean, it's you and I, right? So it's all in one. Then we'll send it to the board, and then at the board level, we may do it separately. But at least we can just send it all.
And you said the number, how much? I don't know if I'm allowed to ask. How much is that?
650.
650? Okay. And would that whole, do you feel that whole number needs to be reflected in that reserve fund?
From everything that we have heard, the top for special education funding is that it's not going to be touched, which is very different than what titles is hearing, but that is what we have heard.
I'll just do another opportunity.
Yeah.
All right, then I'd like to amend my motion to include the creation of a special education reserve fund to be funded up to the amount of $650,000. Do you approve?
And I agree. I still have Naomi on my list. Did you have something, Naomi?
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with this motion.
Okay.
But I do have a question later.
There are three parts in the motion. There's the budget number, the
Yeah, no, it
improvement of
has
instruction
nothing.
fund,
Oh, sorry.
and then a special education reserve fund, just to make sure we're hedging our bets on title.
So everyone understands, it's a motion to send it to the board, which allows us to adjourn the budget meeting and finish
The discussion.
the discussion at the board meeting. Which changes can be made at the board meeting if we feel we need to. So if we get the insurance number, we can change the amount there. That's
Is there any way you
accurate,
can,
right? Does that sound
put the
accurate?
screws to them to get that number?
What number is that? This insurance?
Yeah.
Title.
Well, I politely asked that. They said the 11th, so we
Okay.
would know by the second board meeting of the month.
Okay.
If we had to wait to vote in the final budget on, instead of this Thursday, next Thursday. I know,
Which may be a possibility.
Okay,
We may be able to
just as long as we don't mess up.
do it the
time-wise.
next board meeting instead of the one this week, if we wanted to wait for some numbers.
It wouldn't mess up the timeline?
No, I went over it and we can do it. It makes it a little tighter, but it's actually not as tight as it's been in years when there's no board meeting. The second board meeting in April, which throws me into May, which really, so I have a little bit of breathing room even without that.
Rachel?
Are we not, could we, once this, if as is worded, if we send this to the board, then it doesn't, sorry, and again, I'm just trying to figure out what is going on, but, if we, is it not smarter to add that money in now and then we can cut it later once it goes to the board as a cushion for the insurance at 280? To add that into the 40 million as it is now instead of having to cut things away later? And then can we cut that once it's at the board later?
Yeah, any changes can be, this is just a
We can-
recommendation to the board.
So we can also add
We
that.
can also add to
Okay.
that at the board level.
Okay, got it, got it.
I'm just being optimistic that it's not gonna be 14.
Okay,
I'm hoping for like she said, 3 or 4.
okay, but we can
Probably not
add,
gonna happen, but
Then the public can add.
okay, but we can add, so because we're not including language up to, for example, for the 750 and the 650, then that $40 million number can change.
yeah, the 40 can.
So we're gonna try to push this off to the next board meeting, not this week, but the following week?
It's possible, it depends if we hear something or how comfortable we feel at taking the risk of leaving that number. So that's
It
something.
could
we
be
need to-
good to wait for numbers, only so we're not asking Tom and Karen and Steve to be finding $350,000 in a budget that we just spent 2 hours going line by line saying, no, 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 yes, no, yes, no. That would be pretty difficult.
I do like that we're in a place where those are the only couple of numbers we need to figure out.
Right.
So I feel good about that.
And if we get them over the next few days, I can certainly.
Yeah.
Add them in and bring it to the board meeting on Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think it's negotiations this week. No, that's next week. It's a board meeting this week.
Board meeting is.
Oh, no, I'm gonna have you pass them down.
All right,
Please pass your paper clips down because Karen's trying to save money.
okay.
Still have a motion.
So we have a motion on the floor. Does everyone
I can
understand?
pass them down. I don't want to forget them.
Does everyone understand what the motion is? Okay, so all in favor? All opposed? Opposed? Abstained? Abstention? What are
I'm
you?
opposed.
You're opposed.
So
So it's just these two?
Danny and Albert.
Did you vote? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did, but
Okay.
I really, I'm not sure I want to, I don't know.
You can vote again at the next
Can I
meeting.
press-
do it
can we
too, on
change?
Thursday.
I don't. It doesn't change anything. We can.
So we're still in the vote.
Is it
Yeah,
just
I
a
just
two
don't know.
against?
I don't-
So 2 against and 1 abstention.
Who was the abstention?
And this is just a count, not a wait. So
Can I ask my non-motion related question? And this, I mean, like, I'm not like a chart and math person, so this is just like all Greek to me, and it's been Greek to me every single time I've done a budget that I've been here. But we had all the principals and all the heads of all these various parts of our district come and present things to us, and where is that reflected in here?
Somebody.
What number?
So,
There's a lot of numbers on here. The adopted budget?
So basically, everything that the principals and administrators asked for that was new is reflected in that list.
Like, I don't see, where?
In the change.
What, in the change?
I'll show you that.
Okay. But, like, I'm just feeling like if we're, you know,
Very, very top, where it says 2024-25 adopted.
yes,
That's, obviously that's the carryover.
Right,
Roger. So
right.
anything that the admins have asked for that hasn't changed is in that.
Okay.
So the tables that we just walked through is only the things that are different
Okay,
from last year.
thank you.
So you don't see a lot because most of the administrators didn't change their white lines.
Yeah.
So that's why there's not,
So would there be a possibility? I mean, like, if it goes to the public and the public says no way? I mean, frankly, I'll be completely upfront here. I was hoping for nothing more than a cost of living increase in this budget. We've got people who, I mean, like, I took the time to look through every town in our district, finding the population in the town, the poverty rate, the tax rate, and how many people are gonna lose homes potentially. We have been asked by various select boards to please be as conservative as we can possibly be. They have people coming in on a daily basis saying, I'm gonna lose my home if my taxes keep going up. I mean, my town pays 82 cents out of every dollar goes to the school. And that's starting to show up in the town in terms of our infrastructure. So I'm like, maybe we all need to just have, at the risk of being really politically incorrect for some people, we all need to do our own little Doge thing here and get rid of everything extraneous that we can. Because I think we need to give the taxpayers a break. I just do.
I just want to point out that this increase at 5.5% is only a 3.1 increase for the town of Warren. If that makes you feel any better.
What kind of an increase is it for the town of Walboro?
It's going to be close to 6 point something.
Okay. There's a 23% poverty rate in that town. That's going to affect a lot of people.
I know, it's hard. We all feel that way.
But it's easy to sit here and say that, and it's another thing.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, the only way we can, cure that whole problem is, go back to reading, writing, arithmetic, cut it, all sports, all everything.
Yeah.
Just cut, but nobody wants that.
I'm not talking about cutting sports or art, because the arts are usually one of the things that generally do get cut, but I'm thinking of, like, they might be small items, but those small items could add up. Do you really need that reproducible book, or could you do something differently? Or could you survive with this rather than that? I mean, that's what I'm looking at. I think we have to get deep into things to say, where can we make the most cuts possible?
Randy.
Yeah, just thinking about what Naomi's saying here. When we bring this to the board, our board, for approval, is that a place where Naomi can bring up things she sees? I can bring up things that I see further. We can do that, correct?
Yes.
I suppose
Because
because
there
I
are
kind of wish we
things
would
that-
have done
I mean,
it
I've seen the
here.
items.
We're in our 4th budget meeting here. Really should have come up before now. But I can't keep you from doing that at the board meeting, no.
Well, in all due respect, I guess I could have said to the teachers, or the principals, is this the best you can do?
Mhm.
I thought that the deal is that we go through all the presentations and then we discuss it. And that's where the discussion happens.
Have we not had a discussion now for the last 2 hours? I don't understand what you're saying. We've been
Well, what
discussing.
you're saying is I should have said something sooner.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is, I didn't, I guess, understand that was what I needed to say to every one of those administrators who came up there.
That was probably your opportunity to go through. I mean, they had their detail there. That was probably the opportunity to say, okay, you tell me what this is, and if you really need it, that's kind of where it happens.
It doesn't mean you can't ask on Thursday.
Right, it doesn't mean
Thank
you
you.
can ask. Rachel?
So I just kind of want to say, I feel like that's kind of what we just did. I don't see a whole lot of room where we can trim. And I think it's at the risk of being politically incorrect. When we look at how much money we just had to account for, that is a result of changes in the federal level, that's really important to remember. When you make decisions, it has impact. And it has impact in ways that you may not have understood, that you may not have acknowledged or been aware of. So this is not a problem that we, as a school board, that we as a school district, that us as educators, or them as educators, are putting the taxpayers in, okay? I think that's really important to remember, that we're not asking for a whole lot here. These increases are because of the cost of healthcare. These increases are because of the cost of moving things from federal level onto our shoulders. And I'm a taxpayer. I'm happy to tell you how much my taxes went up. $523 a month last year. I can't think of any other way, any other place to cut this any further. And it's unfair to think about sacrificing the education of our children because I can't say the next part of what I was gonna say, so I'm just gonna stop. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. Can I adjourn the meeting? We did what we need to do? Emily?
Did you write my name down?
I didn't. I'm sorry. I thought I was done.
Well, I just want to, on top of what Rachel just said, remind all of us that the schools have taken on the job of the community in many, many ways. We're feeding homeless children, we're clothing them. We're giving them a place to wash their clothes. We're picking them up in all over not just our counties, but surrounding counties. Schools didn't used to have to do that. And the schools are doing all that and more now.
Well, we're taking on more responsibility because the family don't want to do it.
No, they can't do it. I understand they can't do it.
All right. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. Long ride back to friendship. No, I'll say it on Thursday.
Hey, Russ, I've got a project.
I don't feel bad for you.
I've got a project.
We don't feel bad for
you.
you. Although I will say, Dan, you do voted no, I feel bad for you. I don't say I feel bad for you.
Bro, you can make a motion. You're doing good.